The parking lot behind me, you see a car. That parking lot behind Betsy's car was there, which means these spots right here behind my head was roughly where my apartment sat. You see those trees sitting there, obviously those have been there for years. So to the right and to the left of those trees were where the old apartments would sit. And I'd come to the little laundry building that sat over in here somewhere, which is kind of weird. Any home I've ever lived in, from childhood until now, I can go back and still see the building, except for this one now. So this is the first home I've ever lived in to have been torn down. Much of this remains unchanged. This little area is under construction now.
That's where you ate from.
So I guess that's going to be the new student center. The old bookstore.
Let's try this thing.
Well, that's bookstore is actually open. We went in there for like 2 seconds. So behind me is the Weaver building, so where a lot of my classes were. Behind me was the computer lab was, and interestingly, and kind of frozen here, interestingly enough, that's some of my first encounters with the internet. We did a little bit of that at Western, a little bit of email and stuff when just exploring, but I remember watching a video on NFL.com and thought it was absolutely amazing to be able to watch something like that online. They got rid of the EKU bushes. Kind of disappointed to see those are gone. These were the tennis courts that I taught, the college course, tennis course for the PE department. And I was, and still am, probably the worst tennis player that's ever held a racket. After I taught tennis, that first semester, tennis and racquetball actually, well, actually I taught racquetball in this building behind me, the football stadium. And after I taught racquetball, I became an intramural graduate assistant, and the offices were here inside this, inside the football stadium. Also, this is where I would work out. They had 3 racquetball courts that were transformed into a weight room. It was a very tight space, not very good working conditions, but that was where we worked out. And then the intramural department also ran the weight room. So once I started doing it, I spent some time working with the student workers, setting up a schedule for the weight room and so on, blah, blah, blah. But that was all here inside this stadium. Be one of the weight rooms. One of the other weight rooms. Okay. Looks like ROTC's taking over these racquetball courts, so that's probably what this looks like, is some of their training. But this used to be one of our weight rooms. One of them. This was the free weights racquetball courts, the very far one on the end. There's cheerleading practice going on, but behind me here was the intramural department offices. The softball offices now.
So you have your own.
This is the locker room inside the stadium. Used to be. It's one of the team locker rooms now, it looks like. And then I done this one night. I was just walking down. It's just like, So I told them about it. I didn't know if it would be open or not. Out to the field.
Oh no, how are we gonna race?
Boys are going to race across the field, turn and get on the field like the football players did. I didn't know if we'd be able to today or not, but we sure did. This is how we had to go in. This is one of the courts I taught on. Going in. So this was one of the racquetball courts I taught on. And very similar to being one of the worst tennis teachers, I was one of the worst racquetball players too, but hey, it paid a few of the bills that semester. It's the equipment window that was where our intramurals, you could check out equipment. So it was really cool getting to see, go walk back down these hallways and relive some of the time. This is where I spent a lot of the time in the fall semester when I'd work out, but especially from January until May when I graduated. I spent a ton of time down in these halls working as an intramural graduate assistant. So it was really cool to get to come spend some time here again. Then leaving intramurals when I was working, or even when I came to work out, I would walk back this way to go back to my apartment. I don't know how much Eastern still uses this track or not. I come and jogged on it a couple times while I was here. I don't guess I did much running then. Now when I would walk home, I would take my shortcut through here a lot. Then I'd make that turn around the building and I'd come up here to these steps. These stairs are still here. It's kind of cool. Then we turn right here, I'd go to the sidewalk. So as I came down these stairs, I'd go straight here, which is now that science building. And I'd go straight down that way through this little neighborhood and it would circle back and then connect to the little street that we just came on. So that pretty much concludes most of the places. We didn't get to do the library. Didn't want to try to go in. Don't know if we could have got in it, but you know, I spent some time there obviously and it's really cool, but didn't get in that, and then I didn't get in any of the other buildings, but it was okay. Just seeing the other buildings was pretty cool. But getting into Roar Kids Stadium, that was kind of a highlight. Didn't expect that to happen. And that's where most of my hours were spent, were in that building. So that was probably the coolest to get to do that. I'll be walking back to my apartment. Some will go up the steps to my apartment. And another day at Eastern is over. One day closer to graduation.